so happy to have each and every one of you here for our assembly. This morning, we
Resiliency is so important because you got to be strong and you got to be ready mentally, physically, and spiritual, whatever life brings your way. And that is a really important attribute for our soldiers, especially in battle. Now the question is, how did they become so resilient? And maybe more importantly, how do you and I become resilient? Well, let me tell you two examples of some of the most resilient soldiers perhaps the military's ever known. The first one is Colonel Chamberlain at the Battle of Gettysburg. There, his 20th Maine has been given responsibility to defend the high tactical position called Little Round Top. The problem is the Confederate Army wants to take that high position so they can flank the Union Army and win the war. But Colonel Chamberlain and his men don't want that to happen. But they're tired. They've been marching for 3 days. They've had very little food and very little water, and they're running critically low on ammunition. Their opponents, the 15th Infantry from Alabama, who are trying to come up that hill and take it, they're fresh, they're ferocious, and they're well armed. Colonel Chamberlain and his men are in a very difficult position. They run out of ammunition while fighting. What would you do in a scenario like that? Would you retreat? Would you run? Would you surrender? Or would you pick up your sword and attack men that have loaded guns? What would you do? Yes, young man. What would you do? Yes. You'd pick up your sword? That's the correct answer. And that's exactly what Chamberlain and his men did. They attached bayonets to their gun and they ran down that hill and they attacked men that had loaded guns. Here's what happened. Because the Confederates would load one shot at a time in their muzzle, they took their bayonets off their gun. And so they only had one shot. And so although Colonel Chamberlain lost some of his men as they made that attack, the Union Army prevailed because of the ferocious force and the courage that they faced those Confederates with. In fact, most Confederates who had a lot more ammunition or a lot fresher ran for their very lives. Historians say that Chamberlain and his men that day saved the Union Army, thus giving them the chance to win the Battle at Gettysburg, which turned out to determine the Battle of the Civil War. Resilience changed history as we know it. There's another man that was unbelievably resilient. His name was Desmond Doss. He was a conscientious objector, which means he's someone in the military who didn't want to bear arms or carry a rifle. He wanted to serve God and country a different way, as a medic. Well, at the time, no one understood or really liked what it meant to be a conscientious observer. People didn't understand how a soldier could fight without a weapon. But Desmond Doss believed that this is what God had called him to do, and he stood firm in that conviction. In fact, facing a court-martial before heading to war. There in battle, at the Battle of Okinawa, behind enemy lines, under intense fire, with no weapon, combat medic Desmond Doss saved over 75 men's lives by lowering them over a huge ridge known as Hacksaw Ridge. He is the only non-combatant in the history of the military to receive a Medal of Honor. Why? Because of his resilience. A movie was made about Desmond Doss called Hacksaw Ridge, and his life has inspired countless others to serve in the military with or without a rifle. Resiliency is the one trait that Colonel Chamberlain and Desmond Doss had in common. And their resiliency changed history as we know it, and has inspired countless of people around the world. And the same is true for your and my life. But the question is, how do we become resilient like these soldiers? I mean, we're not in a battle situation like that. How did those men become resilient and ready for those unbelievable moments in their life? And the answer is, they were resilient in the small things. They were resilient every little day, every step of the day. And as a result, they grew more and more resilient. So when the big challenges of life came their way, they were ready. Colonel Chamberlain, he was a humble school teacher from Maine. He wanted to serve his country, and he was compelled by the cause to fight against slavery. Desmond Doss, they called him Cornstalk. He was so tiny and skinny. Couldn't hurt a fly, they thought. Turned out to be one of the bravest amongst them. You just never know how resilient you are until you're tested. Do you know what a diamond is? A diamond is one of the most precious stones in the world. Your mom probably wears one on her finger. Do you know that that diamond was just a piece of coal before it became a diamond? It was just essentially a worthless rock. How did it become a diamond? Under pressure and time, that essentially worthless rock became the most valuable rock in the entire earth. And the same is true for your and my life. The challenges that we face are really just opportunities in disguise. And this is what Colonel Chamberlain and Desmond Doss realized. The challenges in their life were really just opportunities in disguise. And the same is true for you and me. You might not have made a good grade in your test, and you're wondering if you're going to pass or do as well as you hoped. You know what? That challenge is really just an opportunity to learn how to study harder and to connect with your teacher so you can understand what's being asked of you. Maybe you had a challenge. You didn't make the team. You didn't get picked for the drama. You didn't get a part of the music group that you wanted to be a part of. That's okay. That challenge in your life is really just an opportunity to practice harder and to come back better. Or maybe there's challenges at home. Mom and dad are having a lot of fights lately. You know what? That's a really tough challenge, but it's an opportunity to pray for your mom and dad. No matter what challenges you face, they are really just opportunities in disguise. And when you face them with courage and trust in God, you're going to become the resilient little warrior that God has called you to be. James chapter 1 reminds us, consider a pure joy. Let me hear you say pure joy.
Pure joy.
Consider a pure joy when you face trials of any kind, because these trials in your life, they're going to help you to become like a diamond, mature and complete in every way. You know what? He's our heavenly Father. And he's not going to crush us with the challenges that we face. He's going to strengthen us. And when we learn to trust him through whatever storms may come in life, we're going to become the resilient warriors that God has called us to be. And it's not just going to change our life, it could change the world as we know it. And that's why resiliency is the word of the day. Let me hear a hooah if you receive that. Here we go. Thank you guys, and God bless you. We appreciate it.